This is Sharon McNamara. You are, of course, listening to Talk Real Estate Roundtable, and I am in our new studio here at Boston Connect Real Estate. We're moving on up. We're up in the penthouse now. Oh, is your microphone? Okay, we have to turn her microphone up a little bit, so I will figure out how to do that in a minute. Tim, can you hear me okay?
Oh, just fine, and the studio looks lovely.
Oh, do you love it? Yes,
Yeah.
I sent you some pictures today.
Got some sun coming in, and
Yeah.
oh, it looks great.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, we just have to, do some stuff so behind us looks a little bit better. But we are here. We're loving it, and we're going to be able to have more of a little roundtable conversation here while we're here. I know Melissa.
You're at a round table.
We are at a round table, yeah. And Melissa is here, and she's going to get everybody up and going on our topic today. Melissa, do you want to do that? And I can help get our guest all set up.
Yeah, sure. So I had to turn my headphones on. It's all HD up here. But I'm feeling better. Last Saturday, I was not doing well. And anybody who watched us on Facebook Live, I apologize. My nose was running. Like, I have bronchitis. Well, and now I'm getting over it. But I felt bad. I was just like, I had to get up like 4 times and like blow my nose. I'm like, I don't know why I'm here. It should have been the Sharon and Tim show, but I'm feeling better. So here we are. But we actually had somebody reach out to me and sort of ask me about this topic. And so I said, perfect, we'll do it tomorrow. Nice. And of course, Sharon reached out to you, Trish, and you've been on the show with us before. But, you were down for doing it. I don't know if your microphone's working or not, but I want to give you an opportunity to reintroduce yourselves to all of our listeners, because you have been on our show before, but it's a special day.
Yes, my name is Trish Flynn. I'm part of Team Flynn at Boston Connect. I am full-time agent with my husband. We've been doing it for about 15 years.
Wow.
2025, yeah, Sharon.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a while.
I remember that day like it was yesterday. Hi,
Yeah,
can
I
I?
remember you lying to me. Yes, you should do it. I'm just kidding.
It's a great career.
So flexible.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is sort of flexible, but to everybody else's schedule. But
Right.
Trish was, she used to babysit Casey and Mackenzie, and you were going back and forth because Nick was a Marine, and you guys were doing the whole military thing. And she called. I was actually helping them as a buyer's agent too, and one situation was terrible, but makes you stronger.
Yes, it does.
Makes you stronger for sure. But then I remember her saying, hey, can I meet you for coffee? And I was like, sure. And she's like, oh, I'm going for my real estate license tomorrow. And I was like, weird. I'm going out on my own tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that had to have
It
been
was so
October,
magical.
right? October?
Yeah.
I want to see.
It was September, but you opened in October.
Yeah.
No? What's wrong?
Yeah, no, it is working.
Yeah, it is.
I can hear myself.
Yeah, I can too.
Perfect. So you did your introduction, but do you want to introduce what our topic is today?
Yeah, so you had reached out to some people to find out what they thought would be a good topic, and we think that this is a good one. And we have, the reason why Trish is here is because every time I think of this topic, I think of the situation that Trish had one year, and I texted her and I was like, hey, do you want to join us for the radio show? And I was like, why don't you just come in? We have a new studio and all of that.
And here you are.
And here we
I
are.
am.
So we're calling it the home handoff etiquette. So it's, how when you're leaving your house after, when you sold it, what do you leave behind? What do you not leave behind? What are the buyer expectations? What are the seller expectations? And one of my favorite lines is, I know Laurie Reaney says it around here all the time. Laurie Reaney's a full-time agent here at Boston Connect. She'll say, conflict only arises when expectations differ. Mm-hmm. And that's why, just be clear right from the beginning, what is staying, what is going, and then you won't be worried. But we've all had those poop shows.
Yeah.
When we get to the end.
Well, I
More
know.
often than we like.
Yeah, I know why this question was asked. So my boyfriend, Ethan, his father, Bill, it was his birthday the other day, and we went and had dinner with them, and we were talking about my house, and he asked me if we could one day do this topic. And then, of course, I said, oh, we'll do it this Saturday. But he was curious because, in a few years, they're thinking about possibly moving. But also, I was talking about my house, and I told him that I wanted to get a dumpster. And he said, you just bought your house like a little over a year ago. What could you get rid of? And I said, well, there were things that I accumulated when I first bought my house from other people. And now a year has gone by and I haven't used it.
Well, and things that you've gotten from my clients that have left that were like, oh, I don't want this anymore.
Yeah.
Can anybody use it? And I'd be like, Mel, do you want this?
Yeah. So some of that stuff I'm still using. My big green chair, I still use that from the Meadows. But there are a couple things that, big items, big bulky items that I haven't been able to get rid of or I haven't used in over a year. So if I haven't already used it in the first year, I'm not going to use it. But also there were some things.
Philosophy right there, Melissa.
yeah.
I'm trying.
A lot of people need to have that philosophy.
I am trying, but also there were some things that I said yes to having the seller leave at the house
Out of kindness of
out
your
of kindness of my heart. And
Like what? Give me some ideas.
there is a bookshelf. Well, there's actually two bookshelves from the house. Also I had taken down, or Mark had taken down the day that I moved in, like wood paneling, and there's this huge piece of wood paneling in my basement. I'm like, I got to get rid of this. Like every time I look at something, I'm like, I have to get rid of this. But some of the things that I did say, oh yeah, sure, not a problem. I am grateful that I said no to the couch that she wanted to leave.
Oh, yeah,
The big
yeah.
floral couch. But because I would be still thinking, okay, I have to get
How
rid of
do I
that.
get rid of that?
How do I get rid of it? So
And
that
to-
sort of brought up the topic of what
If you
do
think
you
about
do?
the paneling too, though, because I remember you called me and you're like, why did she leave this behind? One time you asked me that, and I go, she didn't. You asked Mark to take it off your wall.
No, I didn't remember what it was because it was like a huge piece of wood, and I'm like, what is that? Why did she leave that? I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the paneling from the stairs.
To like block.
No, so I had wood paneling going up and down the stairs because I have a raised branch. So I going down, it can't come down, but going up, he yanked it down and it much brighter. But anyways, there are
She
some
did it for
things that-
cosmetics.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
there's still some things that I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta get rid of these. So it prompted the question of what do you do when you are go doing your final walkthrough and there's some things there that possibly you don't want or you do want.
There's always.
And then you
There's
find things,
always.
right? People will hide stuff too.
Yeah, you had a bad one. One time.
I've had a couple
Paint
bad ones, yeah.
Up in a-
up in a like
up above
yeah.
a closet. That's
With
my cousin.
your cousin's house, yeah. So,
They just like stored all the paint like up in this little nook.
and how would I know? I mean, I wasn't getting up in
and
the
then
nook.
on the final walkthrough, you don't have ladders. You don't have like means to like check the nooks and crannies.
Yeah.
There's always stuff in the nooks and crannies.
Oh, well, I do have a rusted ladder underneath the porch.
Ladders are beneficial though.
Yeah, and a grill. I literally leave the grill, so stuff that needs to be, thrown out. But
Just so you know, I could get a dumpster every single year of my life.
Oh my
Yeah,
God,
I'm
yeah.
sure.
Right? I don't know where all this stuff comes from. It just accumulates. I just want to remind our listeners, too, you are listening to Talk Real Estate Roundtable. I am Sharon McNamara, broker owner of Boston Connect Real Estate, along with Melissa Wallace, who is the Director of Operations and Agent Relations here at Boston Connect, along with Trish Flynn, who is part of the Flynn team. Is that
Yeah,
the Flynn
Team
team? Team Flynn. I always say it backwards for some reason. Team Flynn. And, of course, they are full-time real estate agents at Boston Connect Real Estate as well, and on 15 years now. Oy.
Oy,
Oy.
I know.
If you have any questions, though, Tim is in studio at WATD, 781-837-4900. So, Tim, if anybody has questions, you can get to Tim, or you can find us on Facebook. I see Dee is watching us as she does every week. So, hi, Dee. I can see that you're on Facebook. So,
yeah,
there we go.
let's start off from the seller's perspective. So what should sellers leave behind?
Nothing.
No.
Unless it's been already agreed upon.
And if it's attached to the house, right?
Exactly.
Like if it's, part of the purchase and sales. And that's what happens, Trish. Don't you think? It's like you're at a final walkthrough and you're like, this isn't supposed to be there, or this is supposed to be there. The first call generally is either you're looking at the purchase and sales agreement or you're calling the attorney, right?
Right. I remember I filled in for one for you and a final walkthrough, and I was like, oh. And they're like, where's the fridge? And I'm like, oh, Sharon, where's the fridge? And you're like, paragraph, whatever, no fridge included. And I was like, okay. And then I showed them and they're like, oh. I'm like, we good?
Or where's the second fridge? 'Cause I thought they were
getting both.
Where's the fridge in the cabana?
Where's the
Where's
freezer,
yeah.
the deep freeze? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's personal property. So just think of it. If it can move, it's probably going.
And I think too that sometimes people will get confused because when we're looking at appliances, like what is considered like attached, right? So the dishwasher, they consider it attached. And
A microwave could be.
yeah, the microwave like over, if it's over or in a cabinet or something like that. And then the stove.
Has to stay.
It has to stay, right? Because you need that anyways for occupancy, anyways, new construction or whatever. But I think there is an argument a little bit to, all right, the dishwasher is attached because it's attached to water, but most refrigerators are too,
Right.
right? But
Right.
just make sure it's in the P&S. That's all I have to say. Hey, if you think it should be there, just have it written down
Have
somewhere.
it written in there. And the clarity will resolve all angst.
Or if you want it, put it in your offer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But sometimes
if you're
people start being like, let's keep this offer as clean as possible and then we'll work it out later.
And then you walk into your house and you're like, oh, I don't have a refrigerator.
Refrigerator.
I have to get a little cooler for the next couple of days.
days. Well, luckily right now it's cold enough. You can just put it outside.
It'll be fine. But yeah, I would say stoves, ovens, dishwashers, built-in microwaves, curtain rods.
I was just going to say that.
I like the topic of this show, etiquette.
Yeah.
Etiquette. It's like doing the correct, polite thing. And I know moving is very stressful for a lot of people, and there's a lot of things.
And different
So-
situations, right?
Right.
So, like, I'll tell you, the divorce situations that I have, like if I'm the listing agent or even the buyer's agent, and I know that a couple is getting divorced, those ones are usually really, really hard because someone's in the house and they're like, why am I doing all the work?
Yeah.
But there have been many a times. It's always my divorce situations that I'm in there and I am cleaning and picking up.
I had one I cried. It was like July. It was hot as heck. And the night before, she called and said a bunch of stuff had to be removed by the ex, who was not even allowed on the property. So I had to get it all in writing from her that he could come and take XYZ. And he's like, oh, if the police come, Trish, this is on you. And I'm like, it's got to get out. And he's like, oh, okay, I'll do it. He's like, what are the 5 things? I told him the 5 things. He took the 5 things. The next morning I walked in. I think those are the only 5 things that were taken out of the house.
Oh,
wow.
really?
Yeah.
And she wanted him to take everything else?
And then she started blaming him for not taking anything. He hadn't been there for years.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my. I was like, I cried. I cried. I was like,
When all else fails.
Tough Trish
Cried.
cried.
I was like lugging everything to the neighbor's house just to get it off the property. And I was just, and then I went in the basement. I'm like, I don't even think we're closing today.
Yeah.
But we had great attorneys. We had buyers who had some kindness in their heart for
Yeah.
the situation. I'd like to check in with them to see after the fact how
Yeah.
they truly felt, because it was unacceptable, and I felt terrible. But I mean, I did the best I could.
When you call the attorneys, so I know that was like a divorce situation, but did they do a holdback and explain to our listeners exactly what that would be?
So when all else fails and people don't do everything that they're supposed to do or run out of time or whatever, the attorneys can draft a document that everybody will sign that will say the seller's not going to get X amount of their proceeds. So that will sit with the attorney, and sometimes the seller has another 24 hours to get rid of it, or the buyer gets to keep the money. So it's kind of a remedy in a pinch to kind of make somebody whole, because everybody wants to close. Like if it's a Friday and the moving trucks are there, and there's a lot of moving pieces. And if a seller just goes, oh, well, we'll just close tomorrow. Well, now tomorrow's Monday.
And don't you think, like, as you were saying that, I was thinking, like, what is, we talk when we're on the radio, and of course we say it's so important to use like a full-time agent and somebody who has experience. And I think that these are really good examples. Why? Because like when you said closing on a Friday, immediately in my head is the reason why we shouldn't, right? Especially in the winter. Like in the winter, it's that
storms.
it's a hiccup day, right? Like that, if something happens on a Friday, it's not happening until Monday. But when something like that happens, big happens, then
The dollar signs get more.
yeah.
and the
hotels
stress gets
and-
more.
yeah.
And it's not fair. Everybody's had this moving date for at least 30 days in most cases. And people I always tell people, you underestimate the time it's going to take you to get out. And I'm always like, start with your basement,
Yeah.
start with your attic, start with your sheds, because those are the worst.
It's like
And
doing
when you
your
run-
whites first,
Yeah.
and leave the towels for last,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
They're easy to fold.
They're easy to fold, yeah.
They're easy. That's the last load is the
Ethan does all the
easiest.
folding.
push right through. And you're going to push through like your own closet because you're like, these are all my clothes. But everybody runs out of steam on the stuff that you don't want. And that's the hardest stuff to get rid of.
And two, I do think that, as a buyer's agent, our hands are sort of tied, and some of your stories are great. I have some similar stories that are just as like, I can't even believe this happened. But I think too, as like a listing agent, one of the things I've found myself doing is like checking in, like, hey, how's your moving going? Have you started this? Have you not started this? I've heard situations where the buyers are walking by and it's like, we're not being creeps, but like it almost feels like they're not doing anything yet. And you can sort of tell. And we had one this past year, and it was a big 4-bedroom colonial, big house, and like huge garage, just lots of stuff. And I think in their heads, they thought, it's easy. Like, we're just going to continue to do this. And I kept on checking in with them. How's everything looking? How's everything looking? Literally the night before I went over there, and I was like, all right, I'm rolling up my sleeves. I have to help you. So I'm like helping moving and doing all these other things. And one thing too that I'm thinking about when I get to the end, don't let me forget about the rock. Okay. I'm going to write that down, because so as we're there, I was like, oh, you guys, like, are you really going to be able to do this? Yep. We have this one helping us tonight, this one helping us tonight. And I just had a feeling. I went back there in the morning. They got a lot out, but there was still a lot of stuff, like the refrigerator, right? And then you have to clean it afterwards, right? So I looked at the husband. He goes, I am not kidding. I think this SHIT has been multiplying. It just multiplied. It multiplied.
So one time I tend to do final walkthroughs. Like if I'm nervous, I'll do one the night before so we can get ahead of the storm for the morning, or you just
to
sometimes
make
have
sure.
a gut thing.
You have a gut
And
feeling.
sometimes buyers want to do it the night before just because of time or whatever. And I remember I did one, and I was like, they're not ready. Their movers are coming Friday night. There's no point in you coming on Friday night because their literal will have just started. And they're like, no, but we want to come. And I'm like, I don't think the agent was communicating to the buyer what the situation was. Because when they walked in and like the truck had literally just pulled out. And they were like bringing stuff out. And I'm like, I had a nightmare that night that I was moving them out. And every time I turned around and went into another room, there was like 5 more boxes. And I was like, but I just brought a box out. Like, talk about like the stress we have for our clients. And I mean, by the grace, they did. The next morning, the place was spotless. Everything was done.
Some
and I
can
was
get
like,
it done.
I don't
Some
know.
can.
Some.
Not most.
Some can get it
Not
done.
most. And
Not
like, I've had
most.
people like I've pulled up and they're just laying on their front lawn like, I give up. And I'm like, no, there's no giving up at this point. We're
you
there.
have to keep
You gotta
going.
keep going.
Yeah. We should come up with something, though, to help. Well, a lot of times I'll say, listen, don't worry about cleaning. I'm just going to call my cleaning lady, and I'll be texting Durley like, as I'm walking through the house. Hey, how's your schedule looking for tomorrow? Because I have a funny feeling you might be here. But we can help do those types of things. But back to my rock, those people that I was thinking about, the reason why you want to get ahead of it, and Trish, I think it's great that you say, just start in the basement. When you're putting the house on the market, we want you to sort of clean up some of the clutter.
That's
Anyways,
dumpster one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Get some of that stuff out of there. But I remember I went back in the morning, and I had a bunch of different things going on that day. So I was like, do you need some help? They're like, no, we promise we're good. So I just helped to take a couple things out. And then I said to the other agent, I'll go back for you and do like a little bit of a walkthrough, because that was sort of our deal, the night before. And as a buyer's agent, I would trust certain agents to do that for me, right? But some maybe not.
Yeah, it's tough.
But I just videoed the house, showed her. But as I walked outside, there was a rock in like sort of like, it wasn't really a flower garden, but just like the mulchy area, out front. There was a rock, and it was hand painted, and it had the initials of one of the boys on it. So I took a picture of it, And I sent it to the homeowner, and I was like, is this something that you wanted to leave behind? And she's like, oh my God, please, can you get that rock? Like, it was sentimental to her.
Yeah.
She wanted that rock, but she was so busy at the very last minute, she forgot about it.
Well, like we said last week, and we say all the time, take a walk around your house. Even when you're moving, even when you're leaving, you're not going to come back.
People just forget stuff. Like when we bought our first house, it was the snowstorm of the century the week before. So there's just piles of snow everywhere. So we couldn't even see the outside.
What year was that? Was that 2013?
10.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Yep. And
Excuse me, Sharon?
Yeah.
We have a text message
Oh, okay.
from 339. Just a comment, really, but saying a little over 5 years ago, we moved into a house in Marshfield, and the previous homeowner took down all the TV mounts from the walls, leaving a mess, leaving me with a bunch of flat screen TVs and nowhere to put them. Wall mount hardware should stay.
Oh, so that's a very good text to our listener who's bashful, but I'm glad that they texted in. But, you know, the story behind that is the TV itself is not attached to the house. So we were just talking earlier, like what is considered attached, right? So the mount is considered attached, but this is a conversation that people should have. The TV is not. So in all reality, people can say, I'm taking the TV and leaving the mounts. Well, some people put mounts in weird places, right? So, and maybe you don't want a TV in that room. So you should have that conversation beforehand. Just as a buyer, do you want those mounts? As the seller, are you planning on taking them? If you're taking the mounts, you're taking the TVs. If you take the mounts, you are responsible to patch the wall. So that should have happened. And when you, with this 339, that's what we're going to call that person, I'm wondering if,
Or if you want to use the last four, 6162.
okay, 6162. So I'm wondering, when they did the final walkthrough, what was the resolve? Like it said they left you with a mess. Well, did your agent suggest doing a holdback and have them come back and clean it, or give you some of that money to repair it? That's what should have happened.
Yeah. I do want to talk about negotiable items too. So we talked about the refrigerator, so that can be a negotiable item. What are other items that we have that can be negotiated, whether it's through an offer or purchase and sales or even at closing?
it's really anything.
Yeah.
I one time sold a house with a large amount of furniture.
Washer dryer.
Washer dryer is always a big one. And then it's just like, buyers, here's the deal. The easier you are, the more you'll get. If you're like easy, the seller will be like, yeah, that's great. I'll leave you my washer dryer. I did it myself. And I was mad because we just bought my washer dryer refrigerator and we couldn't find the refrigerator again. Well, it's COVID. But it's I think that, sometimes people if somebody has like a really large mirror attached to the wall, like, oh, can that stay? And usually, yes.
Yeah. If you ask nicely. I try to stay out of it. Like with the furniture, you said like a whole house of furniture. And I like to just try to appliances I can understand. And I think that stuff should be written in there, like pool equipment. I know that, Ethan's father had mentioned pool equipment too. I think that all those things should sort of be written in, but in a gentle way. But in all reality, if the person's leaving and they're not going to a house with a pool, they're probably planning on leaving it anyways. But just again, conflict arises when expectations differ. So just have that conversation.
Well, I was just going to say that they're probably planning on leaving it, but do they have permission to leave it?
Yes, and sometimes like pool vacuums are very expensive, and I've had people like, I'm not giving that. I'm going to sell that on Marketplace because I'll get more money than if I just leave it. I just bought it. Like, well, why don't we offer it to them at a certain price? No.
I know.
I'm not doing that. And I'm like, okay, that's your right. That's your stuff. But sometimes people get funny about things. And
People are weird.
they are. They are.
Just weird.
People are just weird.
Well, honestly, I can understand that you want to get money for it, and I can understand not leaving it behind, but you certainly can, at least let them have first option to purchase it.
Right,
Or
exactly.
okay, can you give me the link to your Facebook page? Like
And then they can go get it on Marketplace.
on Marketplace, yeah.
Yeah, I think sometimes, and then sellers are sometimes have like great intentions of like leaving their shed stuff. Like, oh, these people, they've never owned a home, and I've got shovels and rakes, and I'm going to a condo, and I'm never going to shovel again or
Yeah.
rake again. And but it's like, we don't need your shovel from 1982 that has a broken handle.
And it's taped with masking tape.
Yeah,
I can see it. I've been in that shed.
We've all been in that.
I've all been in that shed.
So we always say, if you want to leave something, give us a spreadsheet. Literally spreadsheet it out. If you want money for it, if you're going to leave it for free, and then the buyer can just say yes, no, yes, no, yes, no.
Yeah.
Lawnmowers,
Yeah.
snow blowers. I've had a lot of people that were willing to leave it.
Yeah.
Left a snowblower. They were so easy. They were
Yeah.
very. It was a good people.
I remember going through a house. I don't remember where it was. It was a condo with Mary. We were doing a home inspection, and the seller had put sticky notes on everything and said, "Oh, would you like this? Would you like this?" And during the home inspection, the buyer would say, "Oh, yes," literally just write yes, check yes or check no for everything. And I think it went all well.
Yeah, we do that a lot with our clients. We'll just say, when there's family, like if they're right sizers, so we'll say, just have a different color sticky note or a piece of tape or whatever for each family member, and just like put that on there as you're walking around the house after photos, please. But then if there's anything that you are willing to sell or leave behind, that will be a certain color. So then we can let people know that these are items. I've had situations where people have done that, and it's been during an open house that they could see the sticky notes on there, and they're like, we're really not going to buy the house, but like if they're selling that.
Yes,
and
when I
that is,
sold my in-laws house, somebody bought the dining room set. She didn't buy the house, but she bought the dining room set. I was like, all right, great.
probably easier to get rid of the house.
I know. Furniture is very different now.
Yeah. Well, there's also instances where sellers change their mind. So they think, okay, yeah, I can get rid of it. And then as it gets closer to closing, they're like, oh, I can't really. And I'm just thinking of a washer and dryer recently where it was not included in the sale. They were supposed to get rid of it. And then they decided, oh, it's going to be really hard for us to get it out of the basement. Do the buyers really do want it? And they didn't. And they said, well, we can't get rid of it. And I said, well, you have to figure it out because you have to.
It's now your problem.
Exactly.
So I suggested to call the town, and the town ended up coming and getting it for them. But we'll talk later even about some local companies that help with these types of things. But I said, well, totally respectfully, I understand that you don't want to get rid of it anymore, but you have to.
Yeah, you don't have a choice. But what did you do? You pulled up the purchase and sales agreement, right? And then what's it say in there? And that's what you have to go by at the end of the day. It's all within the contents of that, that document. When you were talking too about clients who want to sell things, and this, whatever, whoever that person was, it was like, no, they can buy my pool cleaner on Marketplace or whatever. It's interesting because I did have a situation, and there was some furniture, and it was like a brand new bedroom set mattress, right? Brand new, like it was for a guest room, so it was really never used. And the buyer had originally asked for it, and the seller's like, nope, I'm selling it, and if they want to buy it, they can. And the buyer was like, no, I just don't want to buy it. Well, guess what? There was no more room in the moving truck for guess what?
Yeah.
So then I get the phone call. Do you want to call them and see if they're still interested in it? And I go, I know they don't want to buy it. She goes, oh no, we'll just leave it for them. I was like, okay. And they agreed.
They're lucky they agreed. Because
Imagine if they didn't.
Mattresses are difficult to get rid of.
mattresses are very difficult and expensive to get rid of. And I'm surprised because sometimes people get really funny. They're like, well, you weren't going to give it to me then. I don't want it now.
I'm not helping you out now.
Good luck.
Well, and that's what you said, etiquette, right? So this really is a good title because we want when people are getting along and you're giving a little, you're taking a little, you're giving a little. At the very end, sometimes you end up needing a little favor, right?
Exactly.
So
that's why I always say, don't burn the bridge in the beginning because you might need something later.
Yeah. Especially during negotiations of anything, not even just talking about this stuff, but just negotiations in general. It's just like, you don't have to be a hard,
Right.
So what about things that sellers should remove? So we talked about personal property, but what about like paint and like flooring and any extras if you don't already, ask.
Ask is the key word because trying to get rid of it is not always easy. And I always laugh because Nick's like, if you come home with one more gallon of somebody else's paint, I'm going to kill you.
Okay, well, I wrote down something I end up coming home with, and I will talk about it.
You just do, because you're standing there and you're the face of your client at that time, and you're like, I'll just take it. Mm-hmm. Like when I was like my last walkthroughs, I literally just gave the silverware back to my client because it was in the dishwasher.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, you forgot your silverware.
That happens with laundry.
Yes.
Yeah, people
They'll
will
leave
leave the
laundry
washer in the dryer. Yeah.
Always. And I'm just like, the nooks and crannies, everybody, we got to get the nooks and crannies. And I'm just like, okay. But it's just like.
I've picked up underwear in between the washer and dryer.
Dirty socks.
Yeah,
like,
there's been a lot of different things that we end up doing, for sure. Well, you're saying you end up with the paint, and I was just telling the story recently, and I think we're just going to do like a funny show, like on just the things. And I end up with all of these like statues of Mary. Because, like, you can't throw that out. Like, you just can't. Like, not on my watch anyways. Like, if you do it on your own, like, and I don't see it, I've been to someone's house and I saw a picture of Jesus in the trash.
In the trash?
In the trash, in the garage. I was like,
You can't do that.
No, I know that this is a little weird, but now that I've seen it, like, I can't unsee it. Can I have that? And he's like, yeah, sure. It was my mother's. And I was like, okay.
Even worse.
I know.
Your mother's Jesus in the trash.
So I would bring him back. I would give him to my mother. I was like, Mom, here's another one. Here's another statue. I actually have a statue, one of the statues of Mary in my yard, right? One of the big ones. I have it down by my garden. So I just kept on giving these things to my mother, right? And one day, a few years ago, whatever, I was helping my mother bring something into her car, and she opened up her trunk, and I see like a hump, like with a towel, like not a towel, a blanket over it. And I was like, you hardly have any room in here, because she has a small car. I go, what's all that? What's under there? And she goes, do you want to see? And I go, yeah. No lie. It's like every statue and picture of Jesus that I have ever given her. I was like, well, the chances of you getting rear-ended are slim to none.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So people just put Mary and Jesus back to sleep there. I thought you would bring them to a church or something. I don't know. Where do you bring those things?
Bring them?
I don't know.
I guess you could bring them to the church.
Yeah.
Let them deal with it. Let them do what they
Maybe
need to
they
do.
have a
It's
thing.
better than
Maybe
trash.
they have a proper way of.
Like American flag.
Like
flags,
flags. They have a
flags.
proper way to dispose of.
I thought they have a burning of Mary.
Well, they probably bless it, and then they just leave the room. Maybe they just leave them in a room. I don't know.
Oh gosh.
Oh, too funny. Again, you're listening to Talk Real Estate Roundtable, and I am Sharon McNamara, broker owner of Boston Connect Real Estate, along with Melissa Wallace, who is our everything here at Boston Connect, with Trish Flynn from Team Flynn, and they, of course, Trish and Nick are full-time real estate agents here at Boston Connect Real Estate. Today, we're talking about the etiquette of what to leave behind. I know that there was a better title than what I just said, but
Home handoff etiquette.
yeah, home handoff etiquette. So when you are leaving, what to leave and what the expectations are. So do you want to talk more about like the paint and all that other stuff? Because sometimes there are things that are helpful, like maybe shingles to like if you recently had the roof done.
Yes.
Right? Leave some of that stuff.
Yeah, there was a closing that recently asked the buyer if they wanted rock salt and like a snow shovel, and they said yes, because but yeah, I would say stuff like that. It's just ask,
Right.
Don't assume. You know what they say about assuming.
Yes.
So don't assume that somebody wants something that you don't want.
And
Tile.
one of the big things that's happened, like at least 4 or 5 times. Well, it was there when I bought it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know, and you were very kind to accept that.
Yeah.
But now these people don't want to accept it.
But as soon as you accepted it, it became your problem.
Right.
And now it's
Exactly.
still your problem.
I thought you were going to say property, but I like problem better.
It is your property problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it is because, I mean, you think about it, like certain sales go like, yeah. But whoever buys your house someday is going to be like, I don't want this paneling. Like, or I don't want this. And you're just like, oh, okay.
No, you have to get rid of it.
you have to get rid
It's
of it.
usually like the old, like like down in the basement, I just think about like old like cabinets and
jars
yeah,
screwed onto the
shelves and all those things down there. And people are, oh, I left it because I thought it makes great storage. But you don't know how to get rid of it. And, there have been situations where one of my clients, it was actually a pretty nice shelf, and it was in her basement, and it did make great storage, and I didn't make a big deal of it, and I didn't think that, I don't know why the buyer wasn't asked, but during the walkthrough, the buyer did not want it, and Mark ended up coming over and helped us move it. So sometimes it's not worth taking those chances anymore for me, for Mark, just get the question out. But the tile too. So a lot of times people will leave like extra tile behind, which is great. However, still ask, because someone might not want that hexagon tile. Like they might be doing a renovation to the house and everything is coming up anyways. So they don't want even more stuff.
I'm just thinking of the tile, and I know a story recently within the past year of a closing where they had moved the refrigerator and they chipped one of the tiles, but they had an extra tile downstairs, so they were able to swap it out.
Yeah, that's good.
So that worked out for them, but
You never know.
it doesn't always work out 100%. But
It doesn't.
what about from a buyer's perspective? So we've been talking about sellers. So what do you think buyers should ask sellers to leave?
And what they shouldn't ask to leave, right? Because people will ask for funny things. Mary sold a house with a cat one time.
Well, I was going to ask, actually, because somebody had asked about animals, I think just being funny, but haven't there been times where, like, people leave their chickens and stuff?
I've had people that had like, it was loosely farm. And it was just the logistics of like, can I keep my animals here until I close here, and then I'll come back and get them. It was like pigs and goats and chickens.
That's definitely a farm.
I know, but it wasn't like cows and
Was it
horses.
a farm or is it a farm?
It was like some nice pets.
Yeah.
Like I think they were more like
Big pig, huh?
Domesticated pigs.
Yeah, no, I wasn't in the house or anything. But but the
Donna
people,
had one of those.
The people were great because the person that actually bought their house was a real estate agent. So they were like, "Oh yeah, you guys can come back." And they were like, "And we're going to take down the fence." Like it was like everything was like clear cut.
And you have to be very specific about that type
Right.
of stuff. Like I'm taking down the fence. People want to take their sheds. Like, you can really take anything you want if it isn't on a foundation, right? If it's just on blocks, but like, just bump up your price.
Exactly.
Include it in your sale.
Easier. Yeah. But if it isn't, you definitely need to let everybody know that it isn't.
Yeah. So Mary sold a house with a cat.
Yeah. I don't even know how it all came about, but it was something, there was a cat and the seller really didn't want it anymore and the buyer did. So Mary's like, let me see if I can work it out. So
Yeah, I just really don't want my cat anymore. Can you ask the buyer?
Maybe they were moving into like assisted living or something, and they couldn't take it.
yeah, I don't
and
really
it
remember the
becomes
details.
something.
All I remember there was a cat involved. So that's her claim to fame there, is that she
Oh my
sold a house
gosh.
with that.
So I would say we talked about appliances. So if you really want the refrigerator, washer, dryer, any appliance, I would say if they're in good condition. If they're not in good condition, why would you want them?
Well, yes, and then sometimes I've had people who are like, oh, we're going to sell the washer and dryer, and they didn't use the attorney I normally work with, and usually they say as is, and it died like 2 weeks before closing. So what did they have to do?
Buy a new washer and
Buy
dryer.
a new washer and dryer. So, because it was included in the sale, and it died, and it stinks because
Yeah.
it just stinks to have to buy an appliance when you're way out. But you could always go and get like scratch and dent or a used one because yours was used. It wasn't like you were selling a brand new one to begin with. But
And too, sometimes people try to get tricky about that, because I do remember I was the buyer's agent on something, and we were doing the final walkthrough, and the buyer said to me, I think they switched out the washer and dryer. And I was like, I don't think so. But I went back and I looked at the pictures, which is always good. We tell our agents anyways, like, if you're showing a house, just print off everything in MLS just so you have, a record of it. In this situation, it wasn't, but there certainly have been times when people will do that, and they'll switch things out thinking that they're getting away with something. Some of the horror stories. So I initially had called you about one of your situations. Please share, and then I'll share one of mine. I mean, that was awful. The one with all the tires, right?
It was. But we as real estate agents have a job to do, and we are there to represent our clients. And then when our clients take it upon themselves to reach out to the seller. You're the buyer, now you're like chatting with the seller, and you guys are good buddies, and you guys are making deals that I know nothing about because I am not on the phone. I'm not standing there. I don't know why you guys are hanging out.
Texting.
Yeah. Going back and forth. And when you make deals that I don't know about and you don't know how this works, no, we need everything in writing. We need signatures. We need everybody to be, privy to the knowledge. And when we don't know and then stuff goes wrong, how do we go back to help you when I didn't even know about it to begin with? So, yeah. So somebody left a bunch of tires, more than a bunch of tires, and he said he was going to come back and get it. And as we know, sellers aren't coming back. Once they leave, they leave. Unless it's something of value, then they'll come back. And then the town got involved and wouldn't let him build until he cleaned up this dump site. And it was wintertime. Most of it was buried. Like, you really couldn't even see it. You could see some, but it was a lot.
Yeah. And that's why I think it's important to, as, an agent, whether you're the listing agent or you're the buyer's agent, that, you're selling the house, but it is also the property. And, I remember with your house that you bought, Melissa, I never walked out back. And you're like, oh, it just slopes right off. And I was like, I was never back there.
Yeah.
But it really does, people should walk the property and look for things like that, because I think that people try to hide things behind, what's behind that fence, and all that stuff. And I do remember one time I was the listing agent on a property, and, I go back, this was early in my career too, and I always wonder if I showed up to that house right now, would things be different? Would have I done things differently? And I think I probably would have. And I think one of them would have been I would have called DSS, but I didn't. And I remember we're doing the final walkthrough, and this was just an awful situation here. And you have to have carbon monoxide detectors and smoke detectors, when you're closing the house. When I showed up to do the CMA, they were all twerping and tweaking and everything else in the what is it, driveway. So one must have lost its batteries, but they ripped them all down, so they had to put them back up because you can't sell a house without it. But I remember doing the final walkthrough, and I was looking out the back window, and I am the listing agent, but again, I come from a place of risk and liability. I represent you as the seller. That does not mean that you're allowed to bring a mattress and other furniture and other junk and put it in the backyard and conveniently cover it with snow. There was a mound in the backyard just covered with stuff. So I brought it to the attorney's attention, and I was like, hey, I know that I represent them, but I'm letting you know that this is potentially going to come up, just so you're forewarned. And it did. You can't hide it.
No.
When did you suddenly have a mountain in the backyard, So they did a holdback, and they ended up just saying, not getting the money back, because they just ended up, it was enough money to get a dumpster. But then, they're the ones who had to do the work.
Get rid of everything.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
and it's not fair.
Yeah, what are people thinking?
I know.
Well,
That's a good question.
I drive down my street and I see people. There's a mattress in the bogs right now.
Yeah.
The people just stop in the middle of the street and
Launch it out.
Yeah, launch out a mattress. Yeah, in the bog. Anyways,
what's the next one? Handling unwanted items. So sellers, what do we do about that?
Well, I always tell my buyers, I know you're trying to be kind right now. I will be the bad guy. Let me be the bad guy, and we'll figure it out. You don't have to own this problem.
Yeah,
and it's so funny too, because I think, knowing your audience is so important too, because I think about, the house that you bought, right? And one of the things you wanted was a strainer, right? Didn't she leave that behind for you?
she did not leave it behind because I had my Nana's.
Oh, yeah,
so
yeah.
that's why. But no, I did put the strainer in my love letter. That's how I got the house. But yeah, no, that was something. Yeah, that was something. But that was something that I saw during my showing was, the yellow strainer, and that's why I put it in my love letter. But thinking about my final walkthrough, so you came, Kristen Howlett, who's a full-time realtor here at Boston Connect Real Estate, came, Mary Horton came as well. And we, had a little toast, but then I realized, I in the industry did not go I didn't look through anything.
You didn't open cabinets, you didn't turn on water, you didn't turn the stove on?
No,
oh my gosh.
We were just so busy, we were just so overwhelmed. I'm standing there crying.
Trish, please move up to your microphone.
Sorry.
Right next to it.
So I did not look in the refrigerator. There was an onion in there. I did know that afterwards. There was an onion in the refrigerator. I didn't look in the stove to see if it was. I'm
yeah, you got to look at everything. You got to look at crannies. I went through before the buyers walk through the final walkthrough, and I go through all the nooks and crannies, and it's all in the back of my car.
Yeah,
because there's always something. There's always something.
But I just thought it was funny. Thinking about it afterwards, I was like, I did not do what I was supposed to do.
None of us did?
None of us.
It?
No. I mean, we went through the rooms and said, it's still here. It's still standing. Aww. But I think we were all just excited. But I was like, yeah, you got to go. But what, what? I thought I was being nice. So what was I going to say? Oh, you got to come back and take the onion out. No. Right. You got to come back and clean the stove. I'll do it. It's fine.
No, the stove's always dirty. The fridge is always gross.
Yeah,
it just is what it is.
Yeah. But that's that. What were you saying, Sharon? I cut you off.
I don't remember, but I have this other microphone now, so I gave Trish mine.
You guys scream.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm having trouble hearing you, Sharon.
So handling unwanted items. So I would say, for the buyers, use your walkthrough to create your list of anything that that you don't want is still there.
Right.
And the solution could be a holdback. So yeah, there's that.
And like I always say, if you have nerves about them getting out, you should do a walkthrough the night before.
Yeah.
And we can get ahead of it, and then we do another walkthrough that morning. And sometimes we'll do it in the evening before, and then sometimes just Nick or I will go in the morning to make sure it is as it was supposed to be.
I do want to talk about how to get rid of unwanted items. So planning for that, when it comes to hazardous items, so like paints, stains, solvents, you always want to check your town because they might have some sort of a solution to get rid of those things, whether you drop them off somewhere or somebody comes and picks them up, because you can't just throw them in the trash.
Right,
and
and
sometimes
sometimes
dispose of them correctly.
Sometimes town transfer service stations will have a list. It's okay, $25 per car battery, per this, per that.
Yeah.
And I mean, when we moved, we got a dumpster, but then we got a dump sticker, and we got rid of all the extra stuff that you don't want to move it because you put it in a moving truck. What if it tips over? That's gross.
Yeah. There's also some paint stores or hardware stores will take back some and they'll dispose of it too. So always, you can even call them. You don't have to go anywhere, but call your town, call local hardware stores, or I think it's Sherman Williams maybe does it or something. So get rid of that. Lawn chemicals and fertilizer. Again, you can contact your Department of Public Works and sort of get some guidance from them on how to dispose of the chemicals safely, because we want to do everything safely.
In the correct way.
Even if they're empty, or not empty, but not opened, sometimes you can donate them to nurseries and stuff. Not nurseries for babies, but nurseries for
Plants.
For plants. But yeah, stuff like that. So I mean, always utilize your town. Utilize the town and see how they can help you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because they usually have a hazardous waste day.
We're out of time.
Oh, and now you can hear me. Wow. So now I know what the problem is.
Okay.
It's that other mic. Yep.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Trish. I can't believe we're out of
I
time.
know. Can you make sure that you give everybody your information, contact information, so if anybody is thinking about buying or selling a house, you can call Team Flynn.
Yes.
This is Trish Flynn, and what's your info?
My number is 781-223-3286. Once again, 781-223-3286. You can text, you can call, or you can email me at tflynn, that's TFLYNN, at bostonconnect.com.
Awesome. And if you didn't get any of that, you can go on to bostonconnect.com and you can find all of her contact information there, as well as her husband, Nick's. And if you need to get in touch with us for anything, you can feel free to call us at the office, 781-826-8000. And if you want to listen to some of our past shows, go to Talk Real Estate Roundtable on your podcast app, or you can go to talkrealestateroundtable.com. Thanks, Tim. Have a good weekend.
Of this beautiful day. Since we're together, we might as well.
The South Shore's breaking news, weather, and
now
traffic
it's
station.